The scent of stale coffee and forgotten paperbacks clings to your small apartment, a quiet shroud woven from years of deliberate retreat. Dust motes dance in the sliver of sunlight that pierces the grimy window, illuminating the solitary dance of your existence. You trace the rim of your chipped mug, the ceramic cool beneath your thumb, a stark contrast to the simmering ember of a past that refuses to cool. Seth Corbin, a name whispered with a mixture of pity and contempt in the annals of a history you tried to bury, is merely a shadow now, a ghost haunting the periphery of your own life. The city's hum, a distant, indifferent drone, is your only companion. You built walls not of brick, but of silence, to keep the clamor of what was from echoing too loudly in the present. A sharp, insistent rap at the door shatters the fragile peace. It's a sound you haven't heard in months, a jarring intrusion that pulls you taut, every muscle suddenly alert. You don't move immediately, listening, hoping it's a mistake, a delivery for the wrong address. The knocking persists, louder now, more urgent. Reluctantly, you rise, the floorboards groaning a protest beneath your weight. Through the warped peephole, a distorted image forms, a familiar face, etched with a gravity that twists your gut. It's the detective, a former colleague whose loyalty, though strained, apparently endures. You unlatch the door, the click resounding in the sudden quiet. What is it? Your voice is raspy, unused. He doesn't need to elaborate. The past, it seems, has found its way back to your doorstep. You manage, your throat constricted, the same way. The signature, it's identical. He pauses, letting the implication sink in. And the location? Seth. You need to see it. He doesn't ask, he commands, an authority you once shared and now resent. You know instinctively that this isn't a plea for your expertise, but a reluctant acknowledgement that you are the only one who truly understands the ghost they are chasing. The ghost you failed to catch. The drive is a blur of city lights and the detective's hushed explanations. He provides details, sparse and grim, about a discovery made hours ago. A prominent figure, found meticulously arranged, a macabre tableau. The city, once a canvas for your deductions, now feels like a cage. The car eventually pulls up to an imposing structure of weathered stone and ornate ironwork, a building steeped in the city's forgotten grandeur. Police cruisers, their blue and red lights painting the night with frantic urgency, surround the perimeter. Uniformed officers mill about, their faces grim, their movements hushed. The air crackles with a palpable tension, a silent testament to the horror within. You follow the detective through a grand, echoing lobby, past a series of hushed conversations and wary glances. Every eye seems to linger on you, a silent judgment, a curious pity. You ignore them, focusing on the path ahead, the inevitable confrontation with your past. Down a set of marble stairs, then another, the air growing cooler, heavier, until you reach a heavy steel door, its surface scarred with age. This is the entry to the private bank vault below a historic building. The door stands ajar, a black maw in the dimly lit corridor. You step inside, the metallic tang of old money and something far more sinister hitting you first. The vault is vast, a cavern of reinforced concrete and gleaming steel boxes, each a silent repository of someone's hidden wealth. But the focus of this scene is not on the treasure. A figure lies motionless on the polished concrete floor, arranged with an almost artistic precision. The details assault your senses, the pristine white gloves on the victim's hands, the single, perfectly placed antique coin on their chest, the unsettling absence of any struggle. It is a mirror image, a grotesque echo of the crime that had once consumed your life. The detective watches your face, observing your reaction, a silent question in his eyes. You don't need to be told. This isn't just a similar crime. It's the same hand, the same calculated cruelty. The phantom you chased, the one that slipped through your fingers, had returned. Or perhaps, as the detective's words had implied, it never truly left. It merely waited, and now, it has found you again. The quiet life you meticulously constructed shatters around you. The past isn't a ghost anymore. It's a living, breathing threat, and it demands your attention. You are Seth Corbin, and the hunt has begun anew. Dust motes, like tiny spirits, dance in the pale light, oblivious to the years you spent cultivating this silence. The scent of stale coffee and forgotten paperbacks clings to the air, a quiet shroud woven from deliberate retreat. Then, a sudden, insistent rapping at your door shatters the fragile peace. Each thump a hammer blow against the carefully constructed walls of your sanctuary. You hesitate, your gaze lingering on the worn spine of a forgotten book, before the sound repeats, more urgent this time. The world outside, the one you meticulously shut out, demands entry. You push yourself from the worn armchair, the springs groaning in protest, and move toward the sound. Through the clouded peephole, a familiar, weary face stares back. It's the captain, his face etched with a deeper fatigue than you remember, a profound weariness that goes beyond the usual precinct grind. His uniform, though neat, seems to sag under an invisible weight. His eyes, usually sharp and commanding, hold a haunted glint you recognize too too well. You unlatch the door, the click a stark punctuation in the silence. Captain, you acknowledge, your voice a rusty hinge. He steps inside, not bothering to wait for an invitation, his presence immediately filling the small space with an uncomfortable urgency. He doesn't look at the stacks of books, or the dust, or the faint scent of your solitude. You don't need to ask another what. The tremor in his voice, the way his gaze avoids yours, speaks volumes. You know the place, and Seth the artifact. It's gone, just like the Beaumont relic. The air leaves your lungs in a silent gasp. The Beaumont relic. The name, a ghost from your past, a scar on your career, rips through the carefully constructed calm. The sterling trust, an institution steeped in centuries of quiet power, its foundations laid deeper than the city's memory, and an artifact stolen. The echoes are deafening. They're calling it a high-end robbery. The captain presses, seeing the flicker in your eyes, a sophisticated breach. No forced entry, no alarms tripped, no witnesses, just an empty pedestal. But I saw the photos, Seth, the way it was arranged, the almost artistic precision of the emptiness. It's him, isn't it? The phantom. You turn away, walking to the grimy window, your back to him. The street below looks alien, a world you no longer belong to. My insight didn't catch him the first time, Captain. It only cost me my badge, my reputation, everything. The bitterness in your voice is a familiar taste. I'm not a detective anymore. I'm just Seth, a man with too much time and too many regrets, and too much knowledge, he counters, his voice laced with an almost desperate plea. No one else sees it. Seth, they're chasing digital footprints, looking for master thieves. They don't see the signature. They don't see the why. You though, you saw it then, even when no one believed you. This is about a message, a continuation. The sterling trust vault held the Chronos dial, an ancient navigational tool, supposedly lost for centuries, recently acquired and secured. The security measures were state-of-the-art. Yet, he walked right in and left the same calling card. Your fingers clench, the past and present colliding with a sickening lurch. The Chronos dial, a tool of precise measurement, of charting paths. The Beaumont relic, too, had been an instrument of calculation, a device of intricate design. The pattern, once dismissed as a coincidence, now screams in your mind. They need your eyes, Seth. The captain insists, his voice low, urgent. Not your badge, just your unique, twisted vision. You're the only one who can connect these dots. Before he takes another piece, before he claims another life, the phrase another life hangs between you, a silent promise of future horrors. You remember the victim from the Beaumont case, a quiet archivist, found meticulously posed, a single, ancient coin placed on his closed eyelid. The artifact was gone, but the message was clear. You close your eyes, the image of that vault, the empty pedestal, the delicate disturbance in the dust painting itself behind your eyelids. No phantom! He had never truly left. He had merely waited, and now, he had returned to haunt your quiet life, dragging you back into the labyrinth you thought you had escaped. What do you need me to do? You ask, the words a surrender, a reluctant acceptance of the inevitable. The call of the unsolved, the echo of a ghost, pulls you inexorably forward, and you, Seth Corbin, are being dragged down with it. The silence of your apartment, once a comfort, now feels like a cage. You move with a renewed purpose, the weight of years of regret replaced by a sharp, cold focus. First, the files, not the official ones, locked away in precinct archives, but your own. They reside in a scarred metal trunk, stowed beneath a stack of forgotten canvases in the furthest corner of your spare room. Dust motes dance in the weak light filtering through the grimy window as you heave the trunk open. The scent of aged paper and dried ink rises, a ghost of your former life. You pull out the folders, each tab a name, a date, a fragment of a life extinguished too soon. You spread the contents across the worn floorboards, photographs, witness statements, forensic reports, your own meticulous notes. Your fingers trace the grainy image of the victim, a face you've seen countless times in nightmares. The scene photos, stark and unforgiving, show the careful brutality, the signature absence of struggle, the almost ceremonial placement. You remember every detail, every dead end. You search for the subtle discrepancies, the overlooked details, the ghosts in the machine of your memory. Hours bleed into each other. You pore over the old reports, searching not for what you found, but for what you missed. It was the kind of detail that could be easily dismissed, a loose thread in a tapestry of more urgent leads. But now, it pricks at your consciousness. You need current information. You retrieve your burner phone, a relic from a past you swore to abandon. The number you dial is an old one, etched into your memory. It rings twice before a gruff voice answers. It's Seth. You state, your voice low, devoid of its usual weariness. Corbin, The voice on the other end, a former colleague, replies, a hint of surprise in his tone. Thought you were a ghost. What do you want? The new one, you say, no preamble needed. The recent incident. You out. Just tell me, quickly. You press, your resolve unyielding. Are there any unusual details? Anything that feels out of place? The colleague sighs, a sound of reluctant resignation. Same MO as the old ones, from what I hear. Clean, no forced entry, no struggle. But there's one thing. The scene was pristine, almost too much so. And the victim, a collector of antique coins, had a specific rare piece, a Roman denarius, supposedly locked in a personal safe. It's gone, and they found a small, empty velvet pouch on the nightstand. Nothing else disturbed. A small, empty velvet pouch. Your man immediately snaps back to the identified key in the old case file. A key for what? A safe? A deposit box? The new victim's missing coin. The clean scene. The empty pouch. A pattern begins to coalesce. Vague, but insistent. The old victim had no known safe. No obvious connection to valuables that would require such a key. Yet, the key existed. Thanks, you say, and end the call before he can press for more. The old inventory report lies before you. Small, ornate key, unidentified. You remember the witness statements, the background checks. The old victim, a quiet archivist, lived a modest life, no overt signs of wealth. But what if the wealth wasn't overt? What if it was hidden? You scan your notes again, cross-referencing names, addresses, anything that might link the old victim to a financial institution, particularly one with private storage options. And then you see it, a barely legible entry in a phone book found in the old victim's apartment, a faded pencil mark beside its address. Not a bank, not explicitly, but the address belongs to a historic building, known for its ornate facade and its past life as a prestigious financial institution. A building that still houses a specific, discreet service. The pieces click into place with an unnerving precision. You approach the discreet, unmarked side entrance, the one hinted at in the old records. The heavy oak door swings inward with a soft groan, revealing a small, austere lobby. A stern-faced attendant, a man with silver hair and an air of quiet authority, sits behind a polished counter. I'm here to inquire about a safe deposit box, you state, your voice steady, belonging to a relative from many years ago. Seth Corbin. You offer a carefully prepared, slightly altered identification, a ghost of your former official access. The attendant regards you with unreadable eyes, then consults a thick ledger. His finger slides down a column of names. Yes, box 417. It has been dormant for decades. Your breath catches. You remember the number written next to the unidentified key entry in your own notes, a detail you'd marked as a possible inventory error. Now, it screams significance. He leads you down a hushed corridor, the air growing cooler, heavier. A grand, wrought iron gate, intricately patterned, guards a descent into the earth. Beyond it, a narrow stone staircase spirals downwards, leading to a vault door of immense thickness, its polished steel gleaming under the low, recessed lights. The attendant unlocks the gate, his movements precise, almost ritualistic, and you follow him into the quiet, echoing depths. The vault is a labyrinth of steel and brass, rows of numbered boxes glinting in the dim light. The attendant stops before box 417. You produce the old key, its delicate filigree now feeling heavy with implication. It slides into the lock with a soft click. The box slides out, a cool, metallic rectangle. Inside, nestled on a velvet lining, you find not jewels or stacks of currency, but a small, leather-bound ledger. Its cover is unadorned, its pages filled with meticulous, almost calligraphic handwriting. Your gaze falls upon a specific entry, dated just weeks before the old victim's demise. It reads, New acquisition, denarius, the missing Roman denarius. This isn't just a coincidence. This is a meticulously planned series of murders, a phantom killer who never truly left, now resurfacing with a terrifying, precise echo. The discrepancies aren't subtle at all. They are the very threads binding these two seemingly disparate deaths together. Its brittle pages whisper of a clandestine exchange, a shared obsession with the rare and the ancient, a web spun decades ago. The cold case victim, a quiet philatelist, and the new victim, a coin collector, are bound by more than just their final breaths. They are threads in the same macabre tapestry, woven with the shimmer of a Roman denarius. Your fingers, calloused from years of tracing unseen lines, move across the ledger's script. The vault attendant, a quiet presence by the heavy steel door, shifts his weight, his gaze distant. He offers no judgment, only silent observance, a ghost in this mausoleum of forgotten treasures. Beneath the ledger, tucked under a yellowed bundle of correspondence tied with twine, your fingers brush against something unexpected. Not paper, not fabric, but a small, rigid object wrapped in velvet. A tremor, subtle yet insistent, runs through your arm. This object feels different, out of place among the mundane detritus of a life lived. What emerges is not another ledger, not a photograph, but a coin. It is a silver drachma from ancient Syracuse, its obverse depicting the radiant head of Arethusa, her hair flowing, dolphins circling her. The craftsmanship is exquisite, each detail sharp, yet the edges are softened by the passage of centuries. But it's the reverse that stills your breath, freezing the air in your lungs. A quadriga, 4 horses thundering, a charioteer in triumphant flight, and beneath the horses, barely visible without the harsh vault light catching it just so, a minute. Almost imperceptible scratch. A hairline fracture in the silver, running diagonally across the ground line beneath the lead horse's hooves. Your vision blurs, not from tears, but from the sudden, visceral jolt of recognition. That's Scratch. You know that's Scratch. You made that Scratch. Years ago, during the processing of evidence from the Oakhaven case, the case that devoured your career, you had been examining a similar drachma, a key piece of evidence, a coin found clutched in the victim's hand. In your haste, your trembling fingers, a slip of the tweezers had left that exact mark. A mark you had spent countless nights reliving, dissecting. A tiny scar on a piece of history that mirrored the gash in your own professional life. This coin, this precise Syracuse drachma with that specific scratch, was supposed to be in police evidence lockup. It was supposed to be sealed, labeled, accounted for. And now, it lies in your palm, nestled among the belongings of a different victim decades later. This is a message, carved in silver, delivered with a precision that borders on cruelty. The killer knows you. They know your past. Your deepest regret, the very coin that symbolizes your downfall. The vault air, once merely sterile, now feels charged, thick with an unseen presence. You are no longer merely investigating a series of crimes. You are being played. Your breath hitches. The game has begun, and you are no longer just a player. You are the target. Its brittle pages whisper secrets, not of finance, but of a chilling chronology. Your fingers, calloused from years of gripping a service weapon, now trace the elegant script, a meticulous hand recording dates, names, and what appear to be property deeds. A line of entries, stark against the yellowed paper, captures your gaze. Not the current victim, nor the one that shattered your career, but earlier ones, almost ghost figures from the periphery of your forgotten files. The dates are sporadic, yet a subtle rhythm emerges, a calculated delay between each mark, and then a name, scrawled almost as an afterthought beneath a property entry, Elias Thorne. The name pricks at a memory, a faint echo from a file long buried. For a minor player in a long-forgotten fraud case, years before your own downfall, a man who disappeared without a trace. No one ever linked him to anything darker. Until now, it's the lead investigator. Their voice eclipsed demand through the tinny speaker. So, we've got him, the competitor. They're bringing him in. You pocket the phone. The cold metal is stark reminder of the world outside the silent archive. The vault door clangs shut behind you, the sound reverberating through the stone corridor. Each echo a step away from the past and into the present's insistent urgency. The air outside is sharp, a biting wind whipping through the city streets as you navigate toward the temporary command center established in an abandoned factory. The place hums with a nervous energy. Uniformed officers move with purpose, their faces grim under the stark industrial lights. The lead investigator, a lean figure whose eyes hold a perpetual weariness, greets you with a curt nod. "We found the weapon," the investigator states, gesturing towards a secure evidence table where a tarnished, heavy wrench lies in a clear bag. Matches the impact trauma, and the competitor's prints are all over the victim's office. They had a public, ugly feud over that land deal. You listen, your gaze sweeping the room. The faces of the officers, the evidence laid out with a deceptive clarity. A man known for his volatile temper, his ruthless business tactics. A plausible suspect, certainly. No witnesses, no CCTV. He's got motive, means, opportunity. It's open and shut, Seth. But something coils in your gut, a familiar disquiet. The phantom killer, the one who stole your life, never left loose ends. Their precision was surgical, their planning meticulous, a chess master's foresight. A clumsy, public feud ending in a bludgeoning with a wrench? It felt too loud, too crude for the ghost you hunted. Later, while the investigator and their team pore over the competitor's financial records, building their case, you drift to the corner of the factory, away from the main hubbub. You request access to the initial crime scene photos, the raw, unfiltered images, the victim's office, strewn with papers, the overturned furniture, the violent disarray. You zooming your eyes scanning for the almost invisible, the easily overlooked. And when you see it, it's not just any knot. It's a specific, almost ceremonial tie, one you'd seen only once before. The victim's wrists, bound with a similar, precise artistry. You remember the competitor. His hands were large, ungraceful, accustomed to shaking deals and throwing punches. The idea of him meticulously crafting such a knot felt absurd, a painter trying to sculpt a monument with a butter knife. The previous victim, the one whose death had been attributed to a random mugging, had also been found with a similar, almost ritualistic restraint. A detail dismissed as happenstance by the original investigation. A detail you'd never forgotten. You pull out your phone, the screen a stark contrast to the grimy factory wall. You search for Elias Thorne, the name from the ledger. An old news clipping surfaces. Local businessman disappears. A grainy photo shows a man with an almost manic intensity in his eyes. Elias Thorne. The ledger entry. The competitor, for all his bluster and rage, was a distraction. A noisy, convenient scapegoat. The phantom killer had a pattern, a signature, and it was not a heavy wrench in a fit of pique. It was a silent, almost artistic declaration. You stand there, the phone heavy in your hand, the image of Elias Thorne's face searing itself into your memory. The official investigation marches confidently towards a false dawn, securing their easy victory. The tension in your chest tightens, a knot far more complex than any you've seen, warning you that the real killer is still out there, weaving a new, deadly design. The quiet certainty that had settled over you, cold and sharp as a honed blade, now propelled you. Elias Thorne was a phantom limb, a phantom pain, obscuring the true wound. The real predator moved in shadows, leaving a trail not of blood and fury, but of calculated silence. The chosen victims. That was the key. That ghost had left a signature years ago on the edges of your vision, dismissed as an anomaly, a coincidence. Now, you knew better. The not just a knot, but the knot. You remembered the faint impression on the wax seal of an old letter found near the first victim, a detail catalogued but never truly understood. You remembered the same unusual carving on a small wooden keepsake box belonging to another, years later. Each time, an outlier. Each time, overlooked. The address, scrawled on a faded slip of paper from Elias Thorne's intercepted ledger, spoke of dormant accounts and sealed trusts, a legacy held in suspended animation. Access was a delicate dance, a negotiation with a system that had long since cast you out. You leveraged a favor, a ghost from your past, a custodian who remembered your name not with disdain, but with a weary respect for the truth. He met you at the building's rear entrance, a man etched with the weight of years and secrets, his gaze a silent question. "Just don't make a mess, Seth," the custodian murmured, the brass key heavy in his trembling hand. He led you down a narrow, spiraling stone staircase, its steps worn smooth by generations of unseen passage. Each descent felt like a further severing from the present, a plunge into the city's deeper strata. The vault door itself was a behemoth, a circular slab of reinforced steel, its formidable locking mechanism a testament to an era of tangible wealth. With a groan of ancient gears and the sonorous click of tumblers, it yielded. The silence was profound, broken only by the faint hum of distant city life, a muted thrum that underscored the vault's sepulchral stillness. You had obtained a list, a partial roster of the box holders linked to the old ledger entry. You moved with a focused intensity, your gaze sharpened by the dawning realization. This wasn't about money, it was about what the money represented. You found the box number associated with the first victim's estate, a trust established decades ago. The custodian, his face a mask of practiced neutrality, unlocked it. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed legal documents and a few faded photographs, lay a small, lacquered wooden box. It was the same box you'd seen in the old evidence photos, dismissed then as a sentimental trinket. You lifted it, its weight familiar in your palm. It wasn't a common knot, not one you'd see on a dock or a ship. This was something else, a carrick bend, but subtly altered, its interlocking loops rendered almost geometrically and critically inverted. The memory surfaced with a jolt, clear and undeniable. Not just the box, the waxed seal, that faint impression, the subtle pattern on a silver locket recovered from the third victim's belongings. Even a watermark on a specific type of stationery found in the home of the most recent victim. All dismissed as random, as decorative flourishes. But they weren't random. They were the same. The inverted cake bend. This wasn't just a knot. It was a symbol. You ran your thumb over the carving, the wood cool beneath your skin. Why this knot? The carrick bend was a knot of connection, of joining. To invert it, to subtly distort its form, suggested a perversion of its purpose. Disconnection, severing, or perhaps a binding in a way never intended. They all had something in common, not in their lives, not in their professions, but in their deaths. They were all linked by this mark, this inverted knot. But no, it was too personal, too singular. This was the killer's mark, not a group's. And it had been there all along, hiding in plain sight, waiting for your eyes to truly see. The killer wasn't just returning. The killer had never left. This mark, this inverted carrick bend, was a deliberate taunt, a silent scream of defiance against your failure. Each victim was not a random act of violence, but a calculated, ritualistic statement, a thread in a tapestry woven by a mind obsessed with this twisted symbol. The motive, then, was rooted not in money or simple revenge, but in the very meaning of this knot, in what it represented to its architect, and what the victims had done or failed to do in relation to it. You looked at the custodian, who watched you with a quiet intensity. He saw the shift in your eyes, the grim resolve. You held the box tighter, the weight of its secret pressing down, and now you finally understood a single terrifying word. The game had just begun, and its rules were far older and far more sinister than you had ever imagined. The ghost of Elias Thorne, a wisp of smoke, had dissipated, leaving in its wake not clarity, but a sharper, more insidious shadow. You saw the pattern now, not in the frenzied acts of a desperate man, but in the meticulous absence, the silent orchestration. It pointed you not to a public display of rage, but to a hidden archive, a carefully curated collection of lives extinguished. Your gut, a compass rusted but true, pulled you towards a whisper from the past, a forgotten detail from the first cold case, now screaming its significance. A shell corporation, long defunct, its only notable asset a lease for an obscure storage unit, then liquidated, its contents transferred. Where? The trail was faint, yet undeniable, leading you to an address etched in the city's oldest stone. The heavy oak doors of the historic building loomed, a facade of dignified commerce shielding secrets of untold age. You didn't belong here, a trespasser in the hallowed halls of wealth. Your reflection in the polished brass, a grim stranger with haunted eyes, confirmed it. A formidable steel door, an intricate lock mechanism glinting under the sparse, utilitarian lights. This wasn't a brute force job. This required precision, the quiet art of the ghost. Your hands, once adept at forensic examination, now moved with a different kind of practiced grace, coaxing the tumblers with tools you'd thought you'd never touch again. The click was almost inaudible, a sigh of surrender from the ancient mechanism. But your quarry wasn't a box. It was the discreet, reinforced room at the back, separate, almost an afterthought. The second door, less ornate but equally solid, yielded with a soft thunk. Inside, a single bare bulb cast a stark glow over a small, Spartan space. No gold bars, no stacks of currency. Instead, meticulously organized shelves line the walls, each holding binders, ledger books, and sealed wooden boxes. A small, heavy oak desk sat in the center, a single leather-bound journal open upon it. You approached the desk, your breath catching. The journal wasn't a diary, it was a ledger of lives. Names, dates, locations, carefully cross-referenced. Not victims, not yet. These were targets. The entries were brief, clinical, devoid of emotion. And there, next to a recent entry, the victim from the new crime. The same Raven. This wasn't just a killer, this was an architect, a collector. The reveal was not just a connection, but the horrifying scope of the killer's ambition. This was a chronicle of selection, observation, and eventual execution, spanning longer than you could have ever imagined. The Phantom never left. It was merely editing its manuscript. Your head snapped up, heart lurching. Someone was here. You dove behind the desk, pressing yourself against the cold metal, your hand instinctively reaching for the small, weighted object in your jacket pocket. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, entered the outer vault. A soft hum of a voice, then a distinct sound of keys rattling. Just a routine check. A voice echoed, dry as parchment. These old places need their vigilance. A figure moved into your line of sight, a slender individual in a neat, gray uniform, carrying a small clipboard. The custodian, perhaps, or a private security detail. They weren't looking for you, not yet. They were simply doing their rounds. They paused at the entrance to the inner room, their gaze sweeping over the shelves, the desk. You held your breath, every muscle taut, your blood thrumming a frantic rhythm. They stopped at the desk, their eyes falling on the open journal. Your heart hammered against your ribs, a frantic drum. Had you left it open too obviously? The custodian reached out, their fingers hovering over the leather-bound book. A slight frown creased their brow. They murmured something under their breath, too low to discern. Then slowly, deliberately, they began to close the journal. This was your chance. If they closed it, they might not notice its disturbed state. But if they did, if they saw the raven symbol, the meticulous entries just as their fingers brushed the cover, a faint metallic clink from your pocket, a stray tool shifting, betrayed your presence. The custodian froze, their head snapped up, eyes darting, keen and suspicious. Who's there? Their voice, though still quiet, held an edge of steel. You pushed off the desk, a sudden, explosive movement. Their hand shot out, grabbing your arm with surprising strength. The grip was like iron, a vise. You twisted, pulling hard, feeling the fabric of your jacket tear. Stop! They commanded, their voice rising. You slammed your shoulder into their side, a desperate shove. They stumbled back, letting out a sharp gasp, their clipboard clattering to the floor, papers scattering. The momentum carried you past them, toward the vault door. Intruder! Their voice, now a shrill alarm, echoed through the cavernous space. You didn't look back. didn't hesitate. The heavy vault door, still ajar, was your only escape. You had the knowledge, the terrifying confirmation of the killer's grand design, but you were also exposed, a dangerous lead now compromised. The Phantom's silent world breached, and its keeper alerted. The game had escalated, and you were no longer merely hunting. You were now being hunted. You froze, breath held captive in your lungs, every muscle coiled taut against the chill stone. The custodian's head, a silhouette against the distant, flickering emergency light, snapped up. Their eyes, though indistinct in the gloom, felt like twin pinpricks of ice boring into your skull. "Who's there?" Their voice, thin and now carried an unexpected razor edge, slicing through the quiet. The beam of their flashlight, a sudden, blinding lance, began its slow, deliberate sweep. It crawled along the rows of imposing safe deposit boxes, each one a tomb of forgotten wealth, a silent witness to countless untold stories. Your heart hammered a frantic rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat threatening to give you away. The light danced closer, illuminating dust motes swirling in the stagnant air, glinting off the polished brass of the boxes. It paused, agonizingly, on the box just 2 feet from your face, then drifted past. You could feel the heat of its glow, the subtle hum of its bulb, each second stretched, thin and brittle, threatening to snap. Then, a stroke of luck, or perhaps a desperate, instinctual gamble. With a barely perceptible shift of your weight, you nudged a loose grate beneath your foot. It emitted a soft, grating scrape, just enough to be heard. The flashlight beam, swift as a predator's strike, darted toward the sound, away from your hiding place. You moved with the hunter's stealth, your worn shoes making no sound on the grimy concrete. They were guarding something, and that something was your final thread. The custodian had clearly been disturbed mid-task. Inside, not stacks of currency or glittering jewels, but a collection of aged documents tied with faded ribbons and a small, wooden cigar box. Your fingers, nimble despite their tremble, eased the cigar box open. Nestled within, on a bed of yellowed velvet, lay 2 items. But this one was different. On its reverse, barely visible beneath the patina of age, were etched initials RC, and below them, a date, 1973. Beside the lock is a faded sepia photograph, brittle at the edges. It depicted a young woman, strikingly beautiful, with eyes that held a hint of melancholic wisdom. Beside her, a young man, perhaps in his early 20s, his arm draped casually around her shoulders. His features were softer, less defined by time, but the tilt of his head, the set of his jaw, the particular curve of his mouth, they were unmistakable. It was the custodian, decades younger, vibrant, alive, and the woman was a leaner Vance. A sudden, sharp clang echoed through the vault. The custodian was close, their footsteps now hurried, their calls more insistent, laced with a growing panic. "What have you taken? Show yourself!" There was no time for further investigation, no luxury of contemplation. You snatched the locket and the photograph, tucking them deep into your inner jacket pocket. The custodian's flashlight beam cut into the aisle just meters from you. You heard their gasp, a choked sound of realization as they spotted the open safe deposit box. You bolted. You dodged between towering stacks of forgotten treasures, the custodian's shouts echoing behind you, growing hoarse with fury. Your fingers traced the etched initials RC. You pulled out the tattered personnel file you'd managed to acquire weeks ago, a relic from the old days. You flipped through the brittle pages until you found it. The custodian's full name, R.C. Miller, listed on an archaic payroll sheet from the very building. The pieces, once scattered and seemingly disparate, clicked into place with a sickening finality. The custodian, not merely an employee, but the young man in the photograph, the brother of a leaner Vance, the quiet, unassuming figure you dismissed as a mere background presence, the person who had meticulously cleaned the very floors where the victims had been found, who had access to every nook and cranny, who knew the rhythms and secrets of the city's forgotten spaces. The phantom killer, the specter haunting your career for decades, had never left. He had simply changed his disguise, melting into the mundane, hiding in plain sight. His motive, etched on the back of a silver locket, was a decades-old wound. For a leaner, always. A brother's grief, twisted by years of unaddressed injustice, had festered into a relentless, methodical vengeance. The victims weren't random. They were meticulously chosen, each one connected, however tangentially, to the original investigation, to the people who had failed a leaner, to the system that had let her killer walk free, or perhaps had never even found him. He had become the justice a leaner was denied. The man you had nearly run from, the one whose presence you had dismissed, was the architect of this decade-spanning horror. And you, Seth Corbin, had finally seen his face. The game was no longer about finding a phantom. It was about confronting a ghost made flesh, one you knew intimately, yet had never truly known at all. The custodian's choked gasp, a sound ripped from the edge of disbelief, propelled you into action. There was no time to explain, no words that could bridge the chasm of suspicion you now embodied. You moved with the instinct of a hunted animal, the locket and the faded photograph a hot weight in your inner jacket pocket. The beam of their flashlight danced wildly, then steadied, pinning you for a fleeting second before you melted back into the labyrinth of towering shelves. A shouted warning, the thud of their heavy boots, and then you were gone, a phantom in the echoing quiet of the archives. The cool night air was a shock against your face as you burst onto the street, the scent of exhaust and damp asphalt filling your lungs. No sirens yet, but the clock was ticking. The custodian would call it in. You hailed a passing cab, the address forming on your lips before you consciously thought it. The historic building, the one in the background of the photograph, its ornate facade subtly hinting at an older, grander purpose. The one whose archives held the forgotten records of its founding families, the very families whose names whispered like ghosts through your cold case files. As the cab sped through the city's arteries, your fingers brushed the locket through your jacket. Its smooth, cold metal seemed to hum with a quiet urgency. You pulled it out, the streetlights flashing across its tarnished silver. Etched into its back, almost imperceptibly, was a stylized V intertwined with a serpent, the crest of the Vanderveer family, founding benefactors of the city, and key players in the bank that once occupied that historic building. And the photograph, the younger woman, her eyes holding a familiar sorrow, stood beside a man you now recognized, though decades younger, his features sharper, less softened by the veneer of age. The proprietor. A chilling certainty settled in your gut, cold and precise as a surgeon's blade. The custodian's gasp had been for the archives, perhaps, but your own came now for the truth. The proprietor, the seemingly innocuous keeper of forgotten treasures, was the architect of this decade-spanning despair. And the final act, you realized with sickening clarity, would be played out where the secrets were buried deepest. The cab pulled away, leaving you alone on the deserted street before the imposing stone edifice. The historic building loomed, a silent monolith under the bruised indigo sky. You picked the lock with practiced ease, the click echoing too loudly in the stillness. You navigated the hushed corridors, your footsteps muffled by the thick, dust-laden carpet. The ornate sign pointing to vault access. Basement levels seemed to glow with a malevolent invitation. Down a flight of marble stairs you descended, the temperature dropping with each step. The air grew heavier, denser, tasting of damp earth and stale metal, and the door, impossibly, was ajar, a sliver of yellow light bleeding from within. And there, in the center, illuminated by the flickering flame of a small, antique oil lamp, stood the proprietor. Their hands, gnarled and surprisingly strong, were sifting through a stack of ancient ledgers, their pages brill and yellowed. They didn't turn, their gaze fixed on the ledger. You always were one to uncover what was meant to stay buried. The Vanderveer crest. You stated, your voice steady despite the frantic drumbeat beneath your sternum. The stolen inheritance. It was never about a single victim, was it? Not stolen, my family. Stripped of everything, cast out, while theirs flourished on our ruin. The Vanderveers, their names inscribed on every cornerstone of this city, built their empire on a lie, on a forgery. This vault, this was where the original ledger, the true ledger, was hidden. The one that proves it all. They gestured to the pages in their hand. And tonight, it finally burns. You saw the glint of metal in their other hand, a short, heavy letter opener, its tip honed to a wicked point. The crucible beside them pulsed with a hungry heat, ready to consume the evidence of their lifelong grievance. A justice you failed to deliver all those years ago. You were so close, weren't you? But you looked in the wrong places. The last thread connecting them to their crimes. And when it's ash, my family's truth will be etched in a different kind of history. You lunged, a desperate surge of adrenaline propelling you forward. The proprietor reacted with surprising speed. The letter opener, a blur in their hand slashing through the air, aimed not at the ledger, but at you. It was raw, brutal survival. You had found your phantom, Seth, and now you had to stop them from completing their terrifying symphony of retribution, even if it meant becoming another forgotten secret within this echoing tomb. The metallic tang of blood filled your mouth as a searing pain erupted along your arm, a jagged furrow blooming crimson across your forearm where the letter opener had scored its mark. The proprietor, their eyes alight with a frantic, cornered desperation, lunged again, a guttural sound tearing from their throat. You twisted, the sharp edge whistling past your ear, the air displaced a cold whisper against your skin. This wasn't a skirmish, it was a desperate dance, a final, brutal argument in the dim light of a truth about to break. You moved with a raw, animal instinct, the pain a distant thrum beneath the roar of adrenaline. Your left hand, uninjured, snaked out, out, catching the proprietor's wrist, twisting with a practiced force that years of training had etched into your muscle memory. The letter opener clattered to the floor, a thin chime against the aged wood, swallowed by the sudden, heavy silence. Your right hand, still stinging, gripped their collar, pulling them close, their breath hot and ragged on your face. "It's over," you rasped, the words thick with exhaustion and the taste of your own blood. But the proprietor merely smiled then, a grotesque, knowing twist of their lips. "It's or has it just begun?" With a sudden, surprising burst of strength, they wrenched free, pushing past you, a blur of motion towards a section of the wall that seemed unremarkable. You were a step too slow. The proprietor plunged into the opening, the panel hissing shut behind them, sealing the passage. You slammed your fist against the seamless surface, the impact jarring your bones, but it held firm. A bitter taste, sharper than blood, filled your mouth. They were escaping, slipping away into the earth itself. Then a faint metallic clang echoed from within the hidden passage, followed by the distant groan of heavy machinery. They weren't escaping, they were going somewhere. You scanned the surrounding room, your gaze raking over the shelves of ancient tomes, the dusty curios. Your eyes landed on a subtle seam in the floorboards near where the proprietor had stood, a faint shimmer of disturbed dust. A hidden mechanism. Years of observation, of looking for what wasn't there, or what was too perfectly there, paid off. You pressed down, a hidden catch clicking. A section of the floor, not the wall, began to retract, revealing a narrow, winding staircase of wrought iron plunging into the cool, damp earth. The air that rose from it smelled of ozone and old paper, a distinct, musty aroma that prickled at your senses. This was it, the heart of it all. You descended, each step a testament to your grim determination, your injured arm throbbing a steady rhythm against your side. The sounds of the city faded, replaced by the profound quiet of the subterranean world. Finally, the stairs opened into a vast, cavernous space. This was no mere basement. The proprietor was already there, illuminated by a single, bare bulb hanging from the vaulted ceiling, their back to you. They weren't trying to escape. They were waiting. Rows of shelves lined the walls not with money or jewels, but with meticulously organized, dust-free items. Small, faded photographs of young faces, each framed in simple silver. Pressed flowers, brittle with age, encased in glass. A collection of antique pocket watches, their delicate mechanisms forever stilled. And on a central, heavy table, under the stark light, lay a leather-bound journal, open to a page filled with elegant, looping script. This was their shrine, their meticulously curated museum of suffering. "You came," the proprietor said, their voice devoid of the earlier frantic edge. Now calm, almost serene, they turned slowly, their hands clasped behind their back. "I knew you would. You always were the persistent one, Seth." You stepped further into the vault, your gaze sweeping over the macabre collection, the pieces of lives taken, frozen in time. This wasn't just a killer. This was an artist of death, a collector of echoes. "Why?" you demanded, the word a raw, guttural sound in the vast space. "Why, all of them? The decades, the pattern." The proprietor walked toward the table, picking up a small, tarnished locket. "They were all connected, Seth, to a single thread, a single injustice, a single forgotten promise. My family's legacy. Stolen. Not names, but dates. And beside each date, a symbol, a stylized raven, its wings spread wide. It was the crest of a long-defunct, secretive fraternal order, one rumored to have held significant power in the city's early days, tied to the very building above. The proprietor was not just avenging a personal wrong. They were dismantling a lineage, a hidden network, targeting the descendants of those they believed had wronged them. The victims weren't random. They were all heirs, however distant, to a buried truth. The raven, you breathed, the pieces clicking into place with a horrifying clarity. Theodore, you were hunting them, one by one, through their bloodlines. A cleansing, the proprietor corrected, their voice soft, almost lyrical. A restoration. The scales of justice, Seth, are heavy, and I was merely balancing them. Just then, a commotion erupted from the entrance of the vault. Footsteps clattered down the iron stairs. The detective, followed by two uniformed officers, burst into the vault. Weapons drawn, their faces grim. The sounds of their arrival, the sharp commands, shattered the eerie stillness. "Hands where I can see them!" the detective barked, his voice echoing. The proprietor, instead of resisting, simply closed the journal, placing the locket gently back on the table. They raised their hands slowly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on their lips. The smile of someone who believed their work was done, their purpose fulfilled. Event. As the officers moved in to secure the proprietor, your gaze fell back to the journal. The last entry, not a date, but a single cryptic phrase, elegantly penned beneath the raven symbol. "The final feather falls tonight." It wasn't a past victim. It was a future one. The proprietor had been caught, but their final act, Their ultimate target was still out there, yet to be claimed. The justice you thought was served was not yet complete. You watched as the proprietor was led away, their eyes meeting yours one last time, that knowing smile still fixed, a silent promise of an unfinished symphony. The sharp commands of the detective slice through the cold vault air, each syllable a hammer blow against the lingering silence. Hands where I can see them! The beam from his tactical light dances, a frantic moth, across the gleaming steel walls, across the scattered files, finally, across your own face, illuminating the stark lines of exhaustion etched around your eyes. You feel the tremor in your hands, not a fear, but of an adrenaline-fueled release, a tension that has coiled within you for years finally unwinding. The figure before you, caught in the sudden glare, stands frozen amidst the meticulous chaos they had created. A glint of metal, a small, ornate dagger, slips from their grip, clattering on the concrete floor with a sound disproportionately loud in the sudden hush. The detective's gaze flickers from the weapon to you, then back to the killer, a silent acknowledgement passing between you. He sees the struggle, the culmination, the truth laid bare. Don't move, the detective barks, his voice still taut with professional vigilance, even as relief subtly softens the hard edges of his stance. The two uniformed officers move swiftly, their movements practiced, precise. The phantom, the elusive shadow that haunted your nights, is now corporeal, contained. You watch as they lead the killer away, their eyes, in that fleeting moment of departure, locking with yours. The weight of decades, the countless lives, the meticulous planning, all culminate in this single, ignominious exit. The detective approaches you, his expression softening from professional sternness to a weary camaraderie. You found them, Seth. He says, the meticulous journals, the preserved artifacts of the lifetime of atrocities. It's all here, every last detail. You nod, unable to articulate the deluge of emotions. The bitter triumph, the profound sadness for the victims, the crushing weight of the years you lost to this pursuit. This place, once a crucible of your despair, now holds the bitter fruit of your vindication. Days later, the world outside the vault begins its slow, arduous process of writing itself. The news cycles churn, devouring the story, spitting out fragments of the truth, a quiet, grudging acceptance. The newspapers speak of your unorthodox methods, but concede your unwavering resolve. They call you a disgraced hero, a title that tastes both sweet and acrid on your tongue. The intricate web of clues you pieced together, dismissed as delusion before, is now lauded as brilliant. You find yourself walking the city streets with a different gait. The phantom is gone, but the echo of its presence remains, an indelible mark etched deep within your psyche. The years of ostracism, the gnawing doubt, the relentless pursuit, they have shaped you into something new, something sharper, perhaps even more attuned to the subtle dissonances of the world. A small envelope arrives, unmarked, unassuming. Inside, a single, crisp business card. It bears no corporate logo, only a name, Seth Corbin, and a phone number, beneath which, in elegant script, reads, Consultant. The rain begins to fall, a soft, cleansing patter against the glass. The peace you seek is not an absence of conflict, but a clarity of purpose. The old life, the one tethered to departmental politics and rigid protocols, is gone, but a new path stretches before you, one paved with the fragments of unsolved mysteries, illuminated by the hard-won lessons of the past.